Hey everybody, what's happening? I'm Tommy, and you are on the lifeboat. Jason P., my brother. Good to see you. Glad you're here. Diane, what's happening? Sandy Wandy, wouldn't be a show without you. Charlie Muffins, I said it. I said it. Diane, glad you're here. DS Kitty. Catherine J. Rick Spicer. You are a gentleman and a scholar. I don't care what I said about you earlier. Just Joan, good to see ya. Kidding. I love you, brother. Anna, glad you're here. This is going to be a fun one, people, because it's kind of getting back to the roots now, isn't it? Kestrel 42, but I don't have any good news. I really don't. We've been getting lied to. Shouldn't be a shocker, right? Hey, Kestrel, how are you? Karma Chameleon, good to have you. Allison Metcalf Palumbo, good to see you. I live for now. How are you? Kristen Melinda, good to see you. Good to see you. Hey, V. McWilliams, what's happening? Robert Hall, how are you? Marion Calabro, good to see you. Dee Dee Razzle Dazzle is in the house. Malachi, forward-looking sweet liberty. Karma, chameleon. Hard to go wrong. Swedish Lena, with love from Australia. This report, although we're talking about the United States of America, Australia better listen up, because this is an epidemic that's touching your shores as much as it's touching ours. I live for now. Mittens, 1970, turning 54 in 2 hours. Well, I'll be damned. Do you know what this means? This means that you're older than me. And actually, I'm lying. I can't back that up. I was going to let you, but everybody knows when my birthday is. I will always be older than you. There's just no getting around it. Congratulations. Happy birthday, Mittens, 1970. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Mittens, 1970. Happy birthday to you. I am really happy that you chose to spend it with us. It's an honor. Truthfully, it is an honor. Joe Birdwell, speaking of honors, good to see you, my man. Shannon Smith, how are you? Hey. It's Johnny Scoville. Always cool to see my brother. He's usually lurking. You know what? Forward Looking says, I might live under a rock, but it seems like this fent and perk stuff isn't near as bad here in New Zealand. Not absent, just not as prevalent. I think you're probably right. And I think that if you happen to believe in a higher power, I would talk to him. And hope that it doesn't get there, because this stuff is a friggin' scourge like you would not believe. Sandy Bowers, how are you? Thoughts and prayers with Sandy. I'm sorry to hear you're not feeling well, hon. I really am. And there's nothing that sucks worse. Thoughts and prayers going out to you. I hope that you feel better. You're right, Kristen Melinda. He is the ultimate lurker. Nana of 2, good to see you. Good to see you. This is so we got together a little while ago. And some people said some stuff that is getting repeated again and again and again. Johnny says the government are the ones allowing it. Yeah. Well, I think we're probably going to be in agreement on that one, my friend. I think we're probably going to be in agreement on that one. But here's the deal. I started this channel, and I had a partner named Mark Wages. Great dude, right? Really a good dude. Solid dude. And Mark and I did a lot of stuff on the fent epidemic, right? On fake oxys and on the new drug that is replacing fent because it's cheaper to make, right? These are the phyto and the isonitazines and the metanitazines. There's a bunch of different, but nitazines or nitazines, it is about 40 times stronger than fent, which is scary to think about, but it's a fact. Mayhem and Miracles, good to see you. Spike, what's happening? This is the truth, and this is where we're at. And it's kind of an ugly situation all the way around. But people have been popping up for the last, a little bit, right? And we've been hearing stuff like, the good news is the numbers are dropping. And this is the first year that the numbers have dropped, right? Dropped by over 3,000 people, which made all of us, I think, feel a little bit better. Like, for the love of God, we finally made a little bit of headway. Like we could take a deep breath. Guess what? It's BS. Hey, there she is. Squirrel Nut Zipper came right under my arm. This is BS, unfortunately, people. It's not true. So you can pull the stats now. Now you can get them. And on the most recent data, which would be ending in the early months of 2024, meaning the previous year, but that's the way it always is, right? Because we won't know 24 until we're in 25. They had been telling us it dropped 3,000. That would have gone down from 107 and some change to about 104. It went to 110. It's not dropping. It's getting worse. It is still the number one cause of death between the ages of 18 to 55. Perks ruined my life for a good bit, says Karma Chameleon. And you know what? Thank God you were doing them then, Karma Chameleon, and not now, right? Because to look at the difference between a legit Perk 30 and a counterfeit Perk 30, I don't know. I did a lot of drugs. I did a lot of pills. I really did. I did duffel bags full of Perk 30s. Like that was the last of the substances that you could actually abuse, right? Because it was like the oxys used to be before they made them the way they should have been friggin' manufactured from the very first day. But the Sackler family had a better idea, right? The Sackler family, I promise you, knew exactly what was going to happen with oxys, and they had the antidote to the problem, right? How to fix this. So we're going to chase this thing up so that if you add it to water, it's going to go whoosh, and puff up like a cheeseburger. That was not a new technology. They had been doing that to Doluphene, right, for an eternity. That would be methadone, right? Add water to a methadone pill and see what happens. It turns into a white cheeseburger. That thing will puff up about this big, and there's nothing you're going to do to get that to break down. Now, someone will send me a email that says, well, if you do this, this, and this. The point I'm making is it is a very difficult thing to take that, cook it, and do something with it. They did the same thing to perks. They also made it so that you couldn't sniff them or smoke them. But they knew you could when they put them on the market, right? And enslaved the entire world. And it was a supply and demand thing, right? The government did a knee-jerk reaction and made everything illegal. And they made doctors terrified to write prescriptions because a bunch of doctors went to prison for writing scripts. And I don't mean slaps on the wrist, right? I knew some cats in federal prison that were doing the rest of their time on earth for the number of scripts that they wrote for oxys, right? Because they started tying some really ugly crimes to that. People that didn't make it, right? All kinds of bad stuff. And Garnisol, good to see you. ACB, what's happening? This is a pretty serious issue, right? Government does the knee-jerk reaction, and all of these people become, street junkies. They become people that have to go to the street to get their drug because it has been taken away from them, right? Now you can no longer get your fix. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be uncool. I was that cat, right? Mischief Man, it's good to see you. Heather, what's happening? So you're going to the street and you're saying to the local street dealer, hey, I'm trying to get these things that say M30 on them, right? Or M80s or whatever. You know, I mean, I need some perks, right? I'm trying to get some OxyContin or some Percocet, but I need oxycodone. And what they said was, what we have is tar. A lot of people turned to tar, and a lot of people paid a crap load of money for bootleg pills on the street. But what do you think happens, right? You think criminal syndicates are stupid? The whole world is now screaming. The entire United States is saying, you can't get me those pills? I want those things that say M30 on them, man. I don't want to do H. You know what I mean? I don't want to do tar. What the hell? That's not who I am. Linsanity, how are you? Dale Cox, good to see you. This is one of those things, man, where two different kinds of addicts look at each other, and one is able to keep their nose just a little bit higher. You feel me? Right? Because they're doing something that they got written a prescription for, and these things are made in the lab. You know, that it's not like you're smoking stuff off a tin foil or you're putting stuff in a spoon. Like, that's disgusting. We all know that, you know, what I was doing, that's junky stuff, right? They make movies about that. That's gross. But taking pills, especially pills that you got written for what? I mean, you had some teeth out. They gave you these, right? You got a taste for them. You hurt your leg. It was a knee surgery. Angie Mo, what's happening? It could be as simple as you go to a relative's house and you say, you know what? I got a terrible headache, man. You got some Advil or something like that? I got something better than that. Seriously, I got 2 pills you can take. They wrote them for when I had my wisdom teeth out. You take 2 of these, whoa, you're done. No pain, no nothing, I promise you. It's amazing how fast people can get addicted to these, right? If it has your number. Miss Weedy Poo, how are you? Tammy Hinton, good to see you. I mean, anybody can become dependent on it if you continue to do it every day. But there are people for whom this substance has your number. That's me. Pain meds has my number. I can't do them in any way, shape, or form. No control. The way I win a fist fight with that substance is to not get into a fist fight with that substance. It's that simple. If I start the process, I lose. Now, while I was away, the syndicate started pressing fent, right? Coming from that big red country whose name all I got to do is mention in this video will never be seen by anybody. But you know who I'm talking about, don't you? Okay. They were shipping this stuff over here and it was coming through our southern border, already pressed into pills. The largest bust that ever happened with this stuff, right? The stuff was already in pills. It doesn't make a lot of sense to press it on the other side of the border. Honestly, it would be a lot easier to put the stuff into shapes, right? If it wasn't already into pills. But see, they don't want it cut. They don't want anybody making this stuff weaker, right? Because a certain number of these pills have more than 2 milligrams of fent in it, which is enough to take a person off the planet. And they want it that way. Sorry, there's no other explanation. See, if your customer base dies from your product, you make it weaker. It's always been this way. A batch will hit town, 5 people will overdose, the next batch will be cut. Right? Nobody wants that kind of heat. It brings cops, it brings, right? Nobody needs that in that kind of business. This is the first time that it seems to go the opposite direction, right? The more people OD, the stronger they make it. Each batch they're catching is stronger than the next. And the biggest bust that ever happened was over 4 million pills already pressed. That's 1,000 pounds of fent. 2 milligrams will take a man off of this planet. 1,000 pounds just coming through one border, right? Already pressed into pills so that they can't make them safer on this side of the border. If you believe that this is just the way it's going, if you believe that the fact that our drug supply has become poisoned is just kind of an accident, then I'm sorry, but you're literally looking at the biggest threat to our country going right now. This is it. This is it. It kills more people than cancer, right? From 18 to 55, you got a better chance of dying from those pills that I just showed you than a car wreck or a disease, right? Or anything else. It's the number one cause of death. Our life expectancy is going down. That has never happened. It's never happened. We've consistently gotten a better life expectancy year after year after year because our medicine improves. In theory, our diet should improve, right? All this BS. Trouble is, if you start knocking 110,000 people a year out of the math equation, and these people all happen to expire because of these substances, that's going to really skew the pool. And it does. And I'll tell you something. From the very beginning, when Mark Wages and I started to cover this story, they were talking about how we were losing 30 people a day, right? And we said, there's no way in hell we're losing 30 people a day. That would be nice, but there's no way in hell. We're losing hundreds of people a day. We're losing 110 houses full of people a day, right? We're losing entire neighborhoods full of people. The illustrations gets used again and again and again, and I'm not trying to puff my chest out, but I swear to you, I don't remember anybody here saying it before I did. I really don't. But if we lost an airplane, if we lost a 747 that was filled with Americans and it crashed into the ground, we would freaking do something about it. If we lost one of them, if we lost one a day, can you imagine how fast we would shut down air travel? 300 people a day dying from an air crash. We would shut down air travel. But these 300 people a day are junkies, right? These 300 people a day are write-offs. They're people like me, right? They're people that for the most part, society has said, I don't give a crap about these people anyway, right? They're refuse. They got not a disease, right? They don't view this as a disease. They look at us like scumbags. So it's just thin in the gene pool, right? Wrong. And unfortunately, it could be argued that the people that are leaving this planet, sadly, from from overdoses might be the lucky ones, right? I'm not playing. So now they're cutting this stuff. Why? Because you could argue that fent doesn't have legs, right? In the parlance of junkies, what this means is that when you do fent, it gets you ripped, but it doesn't get you ripped for 16 hours, right? And this is a substance like H and like all the other opioids or opiates, where after this wears off, you get sick and then you need to take more. Greetings from Sweden. It's nice to have you, man. Honor to have you. Love Sweden. But how long you can go between needing that next fix, right? They refer to as whether or not the substance has legs. And fent is very, very strong, but it tends to be not much of a, it doesn't level out for a long period of time. It's kind of up and kind of down, and people are having to use this stuff 5 and 6 times a day. So they add a benzo to it. Another respiratory depressant, by the way. Things that make it so much more likely that you're going to OD. Never mix benzos and opioids. Like even every junkie growing up knew this. Like if you were doing H and someone said, I got some Valium, I'm good. No, because both of those things are going to slow down. It chills you out so much that you stop breathing like somebody with sleep apnea, and you don't care enough to fight back through it. Right? Your body just goes, yeah, it's all right. We'll just go to sleep. Yadira, good to see you. CBC, how are you? This sucks. And there's nobody here that doesn't know somebody that lost somebody. Now, the crap that they're adding to the fence called xylazine, right? And really, it's not a benzo. It's just closest to a benzo that, of anything, like we can't describe it any other way, I guess. But it's not technically really a benzo. But what it is friggin' terrifying. Right? It's terrifying. This stuff is meant for bovine, as in moo, right? And equine, yeah, as in horses. Stuff's not made for human beings. But we're getting people strung out on this and that. And when you get tranquilizers that you get addicted to, listen up, right? This is a public service announcement. We talk about this a lot on the boat. You can't quit benzos cold turkey safely, right? You can't. If your substance of choice is Klonopin and you're doing a bunch of them and you go cold turkey, it can kill you, right? If you're planning on quitting a benzo, talk to a doctor before you do it and get a plan in place because it kills people. By the way, so does alcohol. If you go, no, you don't know what you're talking about, trust me, I know what I'm talking about. Acute alcohol withdrawal is the second leading cause of death in county jails across this country. Number one being people unaliving themselves. Number two are people who go in there and lie about how much booze they drink. And within the first couple of days, they go into the delirium tremens and those seizures end their lives. Don't try to quit anything without talking to a doctor first. It's just really solid advice. I'm not a doctor. I'm a junkie. Take my word for it. Talk to a doctor before you do anything like that. But this stuff that these people are doing, the idea allegedly is that this xylazine was going to give this dope legs, right? Now a person could do this stuff and they might not have to do it again for, say, 8 or 9 hours, which is a nice concept. The trouble is that the tranquilizer part of this is so brutal that you see people that are on the nod in a way that we've never seen before, right? The term on the nod is when your body is going between consciousness and unconsciousness. And it can happen standing. It can happen doing anything. And you'll see people in their head kind of looks like they're nodding. And then it'll catch itself. And for most people who are, by the way, trigger warning, if you're an opioid addict, you might want to leave because I'm going to be talking about things that could be triggering you. But if that happens to be your substance of choice, people are trying to get to the nod, right? That's where they want to be. That feeling of going in and out is a feeling that most people who are addicted to that substance really, really love. But I never saw people standing in the middle of the street, bent over at the waist, forward or backward, right? Literally like zombies. And I'm not saying this to make fun of these people because I don't crack jokes about this stuff. I don't find any of this amusing in any way. But there's no other way to say it. They look as if they're from the show, right? They look as if they're a zombie from Night of the Living Dead kind of stuff. the things that this drug causes people to do. And I want to tell you something. When you see a person bent in half at the waist that literally can't move, the odds that somebody in this environment is going to do something bad to this man or woman, you got any idea? Seriously. When you look at Kensington, how many people do you think are getting SA'd a day in Kensington? They're unconscious on their feet, right? Literally. You walk up and down the street, it looks like cordwood. People are stacked on the street. And these are people who have done enough xylazine to not be awake. How many people a day do you think are getting assaulted? This, if you don't see this as an epidemic, right? When have we ever had anything like this happen in our country? Vet Tech here. We use xylazine on dogs and cats too for surgery sometimes. It has a reversal agent called yohimbine. You know what? That's a yohimbine is a isn't that a root? Somebody correct me on that, right? They put that in a bunch of stuff. I'm trying to remember what the stuff is, but I know that I've had that. Yohimbine or yohimbine. I know that that's a, I don't know, maybe I'm having a weird flash, but Johnny says I was taking 2 milligrams of Xanax a day for 10 years and slowly stopped in 2 weeks. God bless you. You're very, very fortunate. By the way, Brandy VT, thank you so much for the support and for the great comment. Johnny, I am so glad that you were able to step down, and I am so glad that you're with us. Hey, Moon Taxi, good to see you. Moon Taxi makes a great point, right? They also cause skin infections. Now, VT, do me a favor and tell me if I'm wrong on this, right? VT Brandy, I think it is. Tell me if I'm wrong on this. This stuff, you're not putting this into a, like when this is being given to a horse, I would assume this is being muscled, right? Like this is a muscle shot. We're just not built like that, right? If they're taking this liquid and putting it into bodies, it seems to me like when they miss a vein, it instantly goes necrotic, right? Like the images of it remind me of the stuff that was so prevalent in Asia a while back, called crocodile, right? It's the same kind of stuff where we're seeing amputations, right? That are just, this is a day-to-day thing in certain places across the country. It is a day-to-day thing that people are just having to have parts of their body removed. It is very scary seeing those people, says Sherry LeBron. It is. It absolutely is. And we want to look away. Be honest. We want to look away. I don't want to believe that this is happening in my country. I don't want to believe that when that dude goes crawling down Kensington at about 5 or 6 miles an hour, and he's got his camera shooting on taking the entire street through, and you're seeing people literally bent over in half, people, I mean, backwards. I saw a picture, and you've probably seen it, of a woman who is bent backwards. Her spine isn't snapping. But to see this and go, this is here. This is in our country, right? This is in our country where we sell Prada. We're jacked up. And if you don't think this is the number one risk to our country, I'm sorry, people. You want to throw on a tinfoil hat? Play with me for a minute, just for giggles, right? 18 to 55, if you had to start throwing weapons into the hands of Americans because people were attacking, you'd be throwing them into the hands of people 18 to 55. Ideally, much younger than 55. But if you had to get your entire base going to defend your country, you'd be looking at 18 to 55. And that's the group we're losing the most of. And the ones that aren't lost, a crap load of them are strung out on dope, right? In a really bad way, strung out on some really horrific dope. And they're estimating that millions of men who are of military age from other countries have walked across our border in the last 3 or 4 years. It doesn't take long to put a tinfoil hat on and start going, you know what? The first shot of this war was probably chemical. And it's probably coming in little pills that have a stamp on them that says M30. And guess what? You can go on Amazon and buy a press to make those. You can even buy the dyes to make a counterfeit Perk 30 and just order it right off of Amazon. Nothing wrong with that, right? Does anybody see that as really screwed up? But it's the truth. The last time I spoke about this, a longtime member of the boat actually took some photos and sent me price points of what it would cost to actually buy those dyes so that you could manufacture counterfeit pills. And I got news that's going to suck, because not only are we actually losing more people than we think, but we're not losing them necessarily to fent, right? These nitazines or nitazines. First time Mark Wages and I talked about nits, I don't know. Somebody who's been here a long time could probably tell you better than I could, but I would say it's been a couple of years. And at the time, there had been one bust of this stuff because it's super easy to make, right? There reached a point in our country where people realized that you could take amphetamines and make them in your garage, right? And crystal meth was born. And all of this, there was a real epidemic of it because people who got a C+ in chemistry could follow a recipe and crank out a batch of drugs and turn household chemicals into something with a street value about the same amount as gold, right? That tends to cause epidemics. Nitazines are to opioids what crystal meth was to amphetamines. This is the easiest, cheapest recipe that somebody can bang out. And when we first did a report on it, there had only been one spot ever busted for it in the US, and it was somebody that was making it look like for themselves in Salt Lake City. Since then, there's no place in the United States that this hasn't turned up. In fact, we're to the point now where it's showing up everywhere in the United States mixed with xylazine, what we needed, right? Because trank, as it's known on the street, trank wasn't dangerous enough when it was fent, right? And xylazine. And before that, it wasn't even, there was something else that they used to use, benzomidazole. There was a different tranquilizer that was being used. They're going to the cheapest and the strongest. They keep making this stuff stronger and cheaper and stronger and cheaper. And they're making it pressed on the other side of the border. Now, here's what's sad about this. If I were still in the game, if I was still a person that was sticking needles in my arms every day to feel normal in my own skin, right? If that's who I still was, I would be buying these pills. I would probably be taking them home, right? And I'd be whacking them with a hammer, taking the amount of powder and breaking it into smaller amounts because I'd be friggin' terrified, right? That one of these would have 7 or 8 milligrams in it and take me off of planet Earth. There's no way I'd want to get anywhere near it. It's not people like me that this is taken out anymore, right? This isn't hardcore long-term drug addicts. They've lasted this long for a reason, and they're not going to screw up and take themselves out. Honestly, it's happening a lot more to people who are getting high for the first couple of times. Mara, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. This is happening to people who don't have a habit. The worst horror story that I've heard so far was a girl that had her wisdom teeth out. And she said, I got to stop at home and get my prescription. And the guy said, what pills did they get you? She said, Percocet. He said, I have some. And he gave her a half of a Perk 30 that he had. And she was dead before they got her to the hospital. These are the people that are that this is killing now. Tommy, who do you think is more invested in killing addicts, Mexico or our enemy in Asia? Hold one moment. Sorry about that. Truthfully, who's more invested? I think that honestly, I think that our Asian enemy is pretty invested in this. But like anything else, now this is becoming a financial thing, plain and simple, because we're not alone with just them. Now there are other people trying to compete in this business, right? North Korea is trying to crank out as much of this poison as they can get. And apparently India is getting in on the game. And why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they? We are the biggest, the demand for this crap now is so unbelievable. Obviously, we've been talking a lot about the Diddy case. The people that went down and got tested, right, had xylazine in their system, had trank in their system. So even somebody who is sitting in theory in the drug world at the top of the food chain, you would think that if you were that crew, you could probably get you a decent, safe supply of something like oxycodone, right? But apparently not, because the people that went and had themselves tested all kept coming back for xylazine. Hello, Nicola Mack. Nicola Mack says, I'm convinced they're cutting the populations. Well, I'll tell you what, it's happening, right? Whether they're doing it intentionally or not, it's sure as hell happening. And I'll tell you something else. We're not alone in this, right? We don't even have the worst fent problem on the globe. You would think we do, but we don't. Israel, by the way, is having a real problem with it. And you know who is really fast becoming the nitazene center for real growth, exponential growth in nitazines and nitazines right now, sadly, is Australia. We're seeing a lot, believe it or not. There are a lot of people that have been busted putting it in these things, right? Over there, nitazines were being sold in liquid form for people to put into vapes. That's an interesting thing I have not heard of on our shores yet. JJ, you know what? How do you argue that? Honestly, how could I argue that? The number one risk to our country is our government, Democrats and Republicans. I can't argue with JJ on this. I can't. And you want to know something? You guys can get pissed and leave if you want. But both parties, right, argued at one time or another for the exact same thing. But neither will give the other side a win. And they don't care how many Americans die in the process because they refuse to give a win to the other side. That makes them both evil, right, with a capital E. I got to agree on that. Brandy LVT says you can do intramuscular, but it hurts like a you-know-what. Faster onset intravenous, no sting. It's a plant of some sort. To name of a drug, 2 we use, it's alpha-2 androgenic antagonist, A2A something. The crazy thing is, right? So this is our friend here, Brandy, is intelligent and is using this stuff in the way that that this stuff is supposed to be used. For a very long time, people in our country have gone to places where you can buy research chemicals and bought research chemicals under names that look rather innocuous, but they're buying stuff that will absolutely blow your mind. Literally, the stuff that you can buy that way. There was a lot of this that was going on, and the government has clamped down on it. For a while, it was like the wild, wild west. You could order stuff from China, and you could basically have them knock off anything that you wanted. There were people that were having them manufacture methaqualone. No joke. Making old 714s. Sandy Wandy, I remember 9 months. Has it been that long? My goodness. Thank you, Robert Hall. Turning people green. Swedish Lena says, no, I'm not an addict, but I am on opioids. I only ever take them if none of my other medications work. I don't use them daily. However, I'm here to keep me accountable, and I feel safe here. You should. And I'll tell you something. No one's ever going to bust anybody's balls on this channel, right? Figuratively or literally, for taking opioids. Because you know what? They're effective. They are a great drug. I'm sorry. They may be the greatest drug. Sadly, once they start to be used counter to how they're supposed to be used, everything goes really off the rails and bad things happen. However, if you break your thigh, right, break your femur, and you are going to thank the stars and whatever you believe in, that you have the MU receptor, right, and that there are the morphine molecule is available to you, because what makes everything so that we can get through some of the most horrific things that will ever happen to us, are opioids. And sadly, because of people like me, right? Honestly, because of people like me who go to pain specialty clinics and work them, right? And by the way, I broke my neck. Like I got a legitimate file to go to a pain specialist, but I wasn't legitimately going to a pain specialist. I hope that makes sense to some people here. I had all of the injuries to say I'm going to a pain specialist. I didn't need what they were giving me. I was going there because I liked getting high on the stuff. I did the trigger point injections. I did every alternative therapy that they could do because in my head, if those things could take this much more pain away, I got that much higher, right? Because if there's no physical pain to treat, the drug treats spiritual and emotional pain. It starts working on things that are, considerably different than that broken femur, but way, way more addicting. When you start having your problems magically disappear from this stuff, the addiction process gets really, really tough. Megan says, teenagers are experimenting with friends, one pill at a party, and they never wake up. That is an absolute fact. And I'll tell you something that is horrific, and it is the truth. If I said to you, what do you think the first drug that most kids do are? You're going to say nicotine. You're going to say alcohol. You're going to say THC. The introduction to drugs now in our country comes from pills. The first drug that kids are going to do now is going to be a pill because they can look the stuff up online. And pills now, right? If you have pills in your medicine chest, the sad thing is your kid will find a Perk 30 that's legit. And a Perk 30 isn't going to kill your kid, right? Not if it's made by a pharmaceutical manufacturer. If it's made by some people south of the border, all bets are off. And I'll tell you something. We used to have to think like, do you have a connect? Do you know somebody, right? Is there somebody you can call? This was my whole life, right? Who's your connect? Who's your plug? Is there somebody that you can call that's going to come here? And will they get here fast? Will the stuff be, will the quality be decent? Because I needed to do this stuff every 8 hours to not get sick, right? Kind of a big deal. Now, kids can go on to any one of the social media platforms and order dope from someone they've never met, that they're never going to know, right? And they're going to get it delivered to their neighborhood in probably under 20 minutes, right? Honestly, it's become like Domino's Pizza. It's not hard to get this stuff delivered to the neighborhood that your kid is in without a car, right? You think to yourself, you live in the burbs, you got nothing to worry about. I would never let my kid go anywhere after school. Would you let him walk outside and go for a walk? Would you let him play in the street? Just normal stuff, right? Because they can go online and they can go to places like Facebook. I'm sorry, it's the truth, right? Instagram is huge. Drug dealers on Instagram, huge number of drug dealers on Instagram who, how you put up a post on Instagram? Well, their post will be a picture of whatever substance they're slinging, right? No joke. And if you spend any time on Instagram, you've already been hit with these people, right? They've already come across you. And you look at it and go, is this possible? This is an interesting question. I don't know if someone has asked this before. Does somebody who is on PCP really acquire a Hulk-like strength? Yeah. I mean, for lack of a better way to put it, they're not going to turn into the Hulk. They're going to turn into someone who's a whole lot stronger. They will seem considerably stronger, and they will seem almost impervious to pain. I rode ambulance, and PCP is not a drug that the people I hung with screwed around with. I mean, I've had the opportunity to do PCP a few times in my life, and I have tried it, and it was not enjoyable at any level. It's a terrifying substance, but it was an oddity that would come through if the Grateful Dead was in town, or but it was not a part of the culture that I grew up in, right? But when I rode ambulance in Texas, I went back. I had a partner at the time, the paramedic, and I was just riding with him. And I walked up to a guy that had crashed a car. And I went back and I said, this guy's in shock, man. Like, he's bad. And he goes, and you diagnosed that in 2 seconds. And I said, he's holding his femur, right? Had a compound fracture of the thigh. The bone was coming out this way. You could see the artery literally like bending, hadn't snapped. And he was holding the bone in his hand like you would hold a tennis racket grip. And he said to me, the guy looked at me and goes, go back and ask him when the last time he did angel dust or got dusted was. He said he's not in shock. And I walked up and I said, when's the last time you got dusted? And he goes, that had nothing to do with this accident. Swear to you. But this guy probably could have walked to the ambulance if we had let him. I mean, as far as pain, this guy was not in any pain. And he had the worst injury I ever saw in my life. Like, it was absolutely the worst. JJ, I can't disagree with that either. You know what? We're going to get this one buried, but who cares? Right? For real, who cares? That three-letter agency and the government and their greed are the investors. I mean to tell you something, right? I want to tell you something. Do you think it is absolutely a coincidence that when we were in Southeast Asia, right, and the drug around there of choice was H, right, the refined poppy, we had an epidemic of it break out in the U.S., right, because the army was over there and they brought it all back, right, when they came back. And when we were in South America and we were doing the stuff with the Sandinistas and the Contras and everything that was going on down there, well, they didn't have that. They had white, right? And we had an epidemic of the Bolivian marching powder, and allegedly that three-letter agency taught a cat how to turn that stuff into rock. And the next thing you knew, the crack wars were on and cracking, no pun intended, right? That's how it went down. Then we wind up where? In Afghanistan. Why? Because of the massive amount of oil there, right? Honestly, I mean, it's a rock. The place is just a friggin' rock. But boy, do they grow a lot of that stuff. For real. You want to talk about a ton of poppies. I mean, that is that's the crop over there. And what happened to the United States of America when we started going to war in that region of the world? We ended up with the worst overload of tar that we ever had, ever. And now we are at epidemic proportions with people addicted to pain meds. And if you watch Family Guy, right? If you watch American Dad, if you watch any adult kind of cartoon content, they will make joke after joke after joke about how fantastic a Loratab is, how fantastic a Vicodin is. They go to the doctor and the doctor will say to them, how many Vicodin do I got to write you a prescription for to get you out of here? 36, she says to him, and everybody gets a laugh. And you know what? It's just considered one of those things now, right? This is just so much a part of our society. And the trouble is, when those kind of jokes are made over and over again, it just becomes part of the culture. It really does. And you know what? We joked about that like that with weed forever. And you know what? I don't even consider weed a drug. I don't. And I know that it is, but I was talking about this with somebody today. It's hard to view it the same way because of it doesn't seem to damage lives the same way or whatever. But the person pointed out to me that a lot of that is just because when we were growing up, the exposure to that substance, that was our mindset. Our mindset was this stuff should be legal. It's harmless. And unfortunately, the jokes that they were making 15 years ago on Family Guy might have been funny. Right? But currently, there are no safe pills on the street. There aren't. Unless the thing comes out of a pill bottle that has your name on it. Feel me? It has to have your name on it. You had to pick it up at a pharmacy. That's it. If you get anything, any other way, at this point, it's tainted. And that could be powder. It doesn't matter what you're doing. And I know there are going to be people, I'll get emails tonight from people who say, I'm still doing the great tar, man. And it hasn't changed at all. It looks like the stuff from the 90s. I got the best plug in the world. I trust him emphatically. I had 3 friends in the last, say, 20 months who told me that their dealer would never sell them something like xylazine. They didn't have to worry about it. This person they had been dealing with forever. All 3 of them are gone. And I don't think that their dealer intentionally got trank, but all of them tested for trank in the post-mortem, in the autopsy. This has killed a buttload of our friends right here, right on this channel. This is killing our brothers and sisters. I don't do politics. I really don't. You might not believe that, but I don't. And I don't tell people how to vote or anything else. But I'll tell you something. Do some research and decide who you think has got a better shot of fighting this particular problem. Because I believe, this is my humble opinion, this is my issue. This is my issue, right? Because the people that that these drugs are killing, they don't have a lot of people standing up and screaming for them. Know what I'm saying? Honestly, you see a lot of these videos? This is the number one cause of death in this country. And this video is going to get buried. It is. It's going to get buried. It's how they do it. If I talk about Diddy, this thing will get 10,000 views. This is the biggest threat to our country. I promise you. So do a little research, and you got a shot at making a difference in the war on drugs. You do, right? For real. This is how it works. You say, we may not win the war on drugs, right? Take that as it is. We may not win the war on drugs. That's a given. Let's say it this way. We're not going to win the war on drugs. It's already lost. How's that? The battles in the war on drugs, if you win your battle, if the people that you love who are in your sphere of influence, your nieces and nephews, your sons and daughters, right? Your grandkids, whatever, the people that you have access and the ability to talk to, if none of those people die from this poison, then the war on drugs isn't going to hurt you quite as bad as it's going to hurt the next person. I'm not trying to be a dick, but that's just the way it is. Keep it real. And the amazing thing is, if everybody had that same concept, if everybody said, go ahead and do whatever the hell you want with the war on drugs, but it isn't going to happen to me and my family. And you know what? They used to make after-school specials called Not My Kid. You remember that? The parent indignant as hell. Not my child. My child would never do that. And a lot of parents think that, right? They're their little angel, and you never think that. People need to say that and grit their teeth while they say that, right? Same thing. But grit your teeth when you say it and go, not my kid, right? Start doing it that way. Where the people that I got a shot of listening to, they don't want to hear this crap from me, I promise you, because I talk to them about it all the time. But if you go back and watch the show that I did with my daughter, and I did it right after she graduated from high school. And by the way, I didn't put her face on. You know, I'm a human being, but I interviewed her. She was off camera. And I said, she went to a school in California. I mean, right in the power band of where this garbage is, you know, really, really rampant. And I said, how did they teach you about what was it teachers, or was it, did they bring in police officers? Because I told her how it was done when I was in school. And she said to me, the only person that has ever talked to me about fentanyl was you. Right? This wasn't, you know, this was very, very recently, people. My daughter has been out of high school 2 years. And they didn't talk to her about this. This is the number one shot of taking her off this planet, and nobody bothered to warn them. This falls on you. I'm sorry. It's the truth. If it's going to be, it's going to be up to you, because no one else is going to do it. And they're not going to do it right, even if they try. They're going to lie, right? They're going to lie to your kids. This is a popular thing to do, right? They'll make the drug worse than it is. They like to say that fentanyl is so strong that if you touch the powder, you're dead. 100 out of you touch this powder, you're gonna die, right? 1 grain of this stuff. By the way, these are aspirin, before anybody loses their mind, right? These are aspirin. But what happens is people hear that, and the next thing you know, there were guys at parties, and they're reaching into bags and picking these things out and handing them to people. And the kid that just heard touching this stuff is gonna kill you is watching a guy hand bang an entire bag of these things in front of a party full of people. And then he watches a couple of people chew up a few, and then what they say? We got lied to. They're lying. They're lying. Like Reefer Madness when we were kids, right? Remember the stuff they told us? Yeah. Well, being honest with your kids need to know that, guess what? You can't experiment anymore. I'm sorry. There was a time you could. Go back and watch the first shows I did on the Lifeboat and watch the stuff I do now. The drug supply is tainted, right? We've lost people snorting blow, right? who OD'd on fent. That doesn't even make sense, right? For those who don't understand the concept of drugs, these are two drugs that you wouldn't normally associate with mixing with one another, right? It's like putting on the emergency brake and putting your foot to the floor at the exact same time. Just doesn't make sense. But it's in everything. It's virtually in everything. If you're not getting your cannabis at a dispensary, if you're not getting pills out of a bottle with your name on them that you picked up at a pharmacy, then you're gonna die. Sorry. Not gonna sugarcoat it. And I'll tell you something else. Hey, Nick, what's happening, my brother? Miss Dragon, good to see you. If you do not, sad but true, if you do not talk to your loved ones about drugs, the person that does is not going to be telling them not to do it. I promise. If you don't talk to the people that you love about these substances, the people who do are not going to be saying, don't do this. They're going to be saying, don't believe any of that bullshit. This stuff will get you high like you would not believe. And these are actually real. My brother, right, had his back worked on. That's where I got these. No, these are from when I had my wisdom teeth taken out. If it doesn't come out of a pill bottle that has your friggin' name on it, you can't take it. You understand, right? And your kids have to understand this. Yeah, but my best friend, nobody, right? Nobody. This is the scariest thing in the world to me. Nicola Mac, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Honestly, I do. This is, to me, people, this is why I started this channel, by the way. If I seem a little heated, I started this channel because I pissed away 30 years of my life addicted to opioids. And the opioids I was addicted to, if this stuff was around when I was doing the dirt I was doing, you'd be listening to someone else tonight. There's no way I would have survived. There's no way. With the amount of the drugs that I did, I would have gotten a hot shot by this point, and it would have absolutely killed me. There's just no two ways about it. As it sits today, if you're new to the boat, you've probably not met Jack. Jack is my friend. He's the only friend I have from the old days. I know people from prison, from the street, from the people that I did dirt with, that I was running and gunning with. Everybody's dead except Jack. And I'm talking about, like, we sit when we get together and we tell stories, and it's one name after another, after another, after another, after another, and all of them are gone. Every last one of them. And yeah, some of them died of infections and things like that tends to take out people that use needles. But the vast majority of them overdosed. And these were people that were doing the same stuff we were doing. He got into the worst car wreck you've ever seen, and I got sent to prison. And both of those things saved us. I'm fashionably late because I've been on the phone with my son, who is now 49 days sober. Praise God. I'll tell you what. And a shout out to your boy, right? That is fantastic. 49 days sober. You can be as late as you want. If you're talking to somebody that's 49 minutes sober. My brother got an email today from somebody, and he was talking to me about it. My brother, Johnny Scoville at Chase the Heat, got an email from someone, and the person was talking about 30 days of sobriety. And they said something that I have heard since starting the lifeboat about 1,000 times, where someone will say, 30 days probably sounds like nothing to you. Huh? 30 days? Those are the most important 30 days. Not being a wise guy. That's it, right? Those first 3, those are the days that impress me the most. A guy shows up or a gal shows up and says, I got 72 hours clean, right? That's the point at which we actually might save someone's life. No joke. If we get somebody out of this merry-go-round, if you're buying this stuff on the street, you're going to die. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. The 3 people that I lost last year, I told every one of them that personally, not like this, one-on-one on phone calls. I said, you can't keep doing this though, right? You're going to end up getting one of these that isn't what you think it is. And you know what? When you do this and you meet people, I'll be really honest, you kind of get jaded. One of the three is a person that I spent more time with trying to help them than anyone that I have ever worked with on the lifeboat. I spent more time trying to help this individual than anyone else ever. And you know what? I'm not kidding you. I was in church praying for him when I got the call that said he had overdosed. And I felt like my stomach had been ripped out. I really did. If you're getting high on this crap today, you don't have a safe supply. I don't care who you think your guy is. I don't care how long he's been getting you dope. Right? There isn't any safe dope left. And the fact that it hasn't killed you yet, it's a miracle. Right? It's a miracle. And I'll tell you something. It takes a miracle to get off of that kind of dope. It's a very hard thing to do. Right? Fent, Trank, any of these things. This is the hardest stuff you're ever going to try to get off, period. It takes a miracle. Those miracles are a dime a friggin' dozen. For real. For the number of people that we're going to lose today, and we're going to lose a lot, hundreds. But there are going to be hundreds of people today who say, I'm not doing this anymore, and they're going to make it. And they're going to make it. And I'm going to end with this, man. You can't do enough justice to what happens with one cat that gets sober. Take one junkie, one person who's lost in that world, right? Doing dope every day. The average person who really gets off in the weeds is costing the government, the country, everybody involved a ton of money, because I was out stealing every single day. I had to come up with $700 a day to stick in my arm just to not get sick, right? And I believed that I had to get really sick in order to get clean. I didn't think there was a chance that I could do it, right? Without having to go through withdrawal. And that withdrawal scared me so bad that for 3 decades, I just kept doing dope. And when I kicked the last time, I didn't have any assistance. I kicked cold turkey like I had done every other time, because I got thrown into a cell, right? A cell where I could no longer get dope. The dope that's out there is designed to remove useless eaters, says Chris. Chris, I have been emailed stuff before and there's a rabbit hole that you can go down. There are a lot of people, folks, who believe that they're thinning the herd of people that they consider trash. That's me. That's you, right? One sober person. My kids' lives will never be the same because I got sober. Right? The 15,000 people today that are going to stop by and listen to me would never have stopped by to listen to me if I was still doing dope. Right? How much one person can change everything around them. The world is never the same after one person gets sober. It's the truth. Right? Their kids' lives change forever. Their kids' lives change forever, which means when they have kids, the whole world changes every time one person gets pulled out of that death roulette wheel that you parked on. So if you're that person and this is what's happening to you, right? This is the time to quit this stuff, because it's going to get you. I'm sorry to say that, it's the truth. Megan, thank you so much. And I'll tell you something, when we lose people, I tend to put on a tie for those shows. And there is nothing I hate worse than putting on a tie at this point in my life, because I don't really put it on for other reasons, and I hate it. I freaking hate it. Tip 420 says we can stop the cycle. And you know what? I got sober, and it's the reason that my kid is sober. Make no mistake. My kid called me in the middle of the night, and he said, Dad, I'm a drug addict. I promise you, he doesn't make that call to me if I'm still using, right? He doesn't. The only reason that my kid was able to step up, and he did the work, people. I'm not saying I did it. I promise you I didn't. What I'm saying is, if I was wasted, he doesn't make that phone call. And if he doesn't, I don't know what happens to him. But I'm damn proud of where he is today. Tell you what, man, I couldn't be more proud of him. And the people today who came here and said, there was a girl today that said, I got out of rehab today. You know what? There are people across the country that will crap on you if you say that you got out of rehab. They will look at you like there's something wrong with you. If you recently got out of rehab, you're my hero, right? I cleaned up so I can talk to my kids about not using. Lee, you're a friggin' hero. I'm not kidding. Let me tell you something. When they close the box, honestly, there's no place on there for you to write down what kind of car you had, right? What kind of watch you had, how much money you made, what you wore on your feet, right? All of the stuff that we really think is important. When they close that box, whether or not you did something to affect the life of a child before you left here is probably the only thing you truthfully leave behind, right? The rest of it will be forgotten instantly. But if you get friggin' sober, right, you're going to leave the world different. You're literally going to change the course of the planet. Can't make that sound bigger than it is, people. There are ripples, and you never know how they're going to end. You don't. People write to me and say, so-and-so recommended your channel, and this happened. And how all of these things come together, they're miracles. They really are. And they're a dime a dozen. If you're out there today, you're on a roulette wheel you can't afford to be on. Please, for you and for everybody else that cares about you, don't suffer in silence. Reach out and ask for help. I am the Admiral, and this right here, that is a cat in a basket. A great cat in a basket, too. What a good girl. You're a good kitty. All right, people. I'm going to see you guys tomorrow. I'm sure we'll be talking about some true crime stuff. Between now and then, reach out and try to save somebody. And I hope that somebody's you. Start there first. Put your oxygen mask on before you start trying to put on somebody else's. Have a great night.